Welcome back, guys. It's time for part 2 of the Q&A for 9,000 subscribers. Thank you all once again for this wonderful, wonderful achievement. I can't do it without you guys, obviously. And Joysticker here, Joysticker440, our first question for part 2, seems to believe that CKN is going to hit 15,000 in no time. Well, it's going to take a lot of help, but thank you for that. I have a lot of respect for that. Which bands got you into the heavier subgenres, Black Death and Grind? I ask this because I feel that Death and Grind could be my thing. I just need an introduction. Well, whenever it came to death metal, Death was the very first band that I listened to that was really in that death metal subcategory, and I already had a Morbid Angel album. However, I didn't get a chance to really listen to it. I had purchased it at a large flea market, and whenever I went to listen to it, there was a very, very large scratch and stain that was on the disc itself that actually left the disc completely unreadable. I could not listen to it, so it was Gateways to Annihilation by Morbid Angel, in fact, and I never got a chance to listen to it until I got an actual better copy years later. However, Death was the first band that got me into death metal. Whenever it came to black metal, it was, surprise, surprise, actually Emperor that got me a little bit more into the black metal subgenre. And then, of course, tracing back to bands such as Immortal and Burzum and the like, you kind of just do that backward process, because I really kind of enjoyed kind of turning back the clock a little bit with the genres whenever I first got into them, instead of focusing forward. It was just kind of a way to kind of get the history and everything. And this was back before Wikipedia was a big thing, so this was the only way that you really had to kind of learn a lot about it, even though there was the internet and there's different forums and stuff. Sometimes you just don't want to go out to a forum and be like, hey, what's the story behind this? Because sometimes people, well, they're assholes. As far as grind is concerned, I wouldn't say Aborted, I would say Napalm Death, because Napalm Death was the first grind album that I ever got, and it was just a tremendous experience. It was, the vocals were just crazy and chaotic, the messages were just absolutely, really geared towards something. It seemed like all of this anger and all this brutality was fueled towards something, and whenever I got into that, it was only a matter of time before you start listening to bands such as, Brutal Truth or Aborted, to name another one, and you continue onward and onward, kind of going backwards, so to speak. And there's a lot of classics in that genre as well, and I think whenever you start to get into the microgrinds and things like that, whenever you really start to subdivide things that much, it gets a little ridiculous, but it's still a lot of fun. Rock Music Forever 90 asks, what are your favorite Melvins and Mastodon album? I do not have a favorite Melvins album. I'm going to confess that right now. I don't have a favorite because they are such a diverse group of individuals and a diverse group of albums that it's impossible for me to choose. So I'm sorry I can't answer that question. As far as Mastodon is concerned, it's Crack the Sky. It's their progressive album, and the reason why is because this was the album where I really felt that they expanded their horizons to the points where everything was going to be, really different. This is really what showcased them to be that band that had that ability to, go outside the box, so to speak, and really do anything and everything. And whenever you have a band that's able to do that, and they're able to do it well, then you know that this band could easily breach certain genres and, kind of step out of the box a little bit that they've maybe put themselves in with their first 3 in this particular case, and, just continue onward with their exploration. And that's exactly what happened with The Hunter. Glenn Rodriguez, what are your thoughts on this band Rammstein, and what is your favorite release by them? Congrats to you, sir, and keep doing your thing. Rammstein is a classic group. I mean, if you like industrial metal, as some people call them, or whatever you want to really describe them as, Rammstein has had a huge effect, especially here in American culture, because whenever their album Sehnsucht, which is also my favorite album because of songs such as Du hast, Spiel mit mir, Angel, and the like, came out, there was a lot of tension because what happened shortly thereafter was Columbine. And whenever Columbine occurred, one of the very first things that the media did was they blamed music, they blamed video games, they blamed movies. And at one of the bands that was considered to be, maybe part of this was Rammstein, along with Marilyn Manson. It was more directed toward Manson than it was Rammstein. However, Rammstein being a German band, and this is an act of hatred, so to speak, and of course Nazi. We don't want to go into that argument. That argument is not a good argument, but it was the argument that some branches of the media here in America were actually making It's terrible. This was a dark moment for music, principally because the media decided to get involved and lambaste people that really didn't deserve to be lambasted, because those kids were just troubled. What headphones, speakers / receiver and other audio equipment do you use or recommend for listening to music? Says R Logic. Well, that's a great question. I use a pair of Sennheiser Studio headphones. Usually the playback device that I use is either my computer, either that, or I have a stereo back at the apartment that belongs to my girlfriend. I have a pair of speakers here in the loft / storage unit that were actually out of an old motorhome or a recreational vehicle that were used as surround sound speakers, so I get a little bit more of that dense sound that kind of encircles the room a little bit whenever I'm over here. A lot of people probably wonder why I'm splitting locations. It's because I have them at my disposal, and I still have some of my stuff here, so it's nice for setting purposes, and plus it changes things up a little bit. But at any rate, as far as headphones that I would recommend, the Sennheisers are a great, strong German brand of headphone. But at the same time, if you like dynamic bass and a great sound, sometimes the Skull Candies are going to be very good also, but you really need to go up in price for those, mainly because they're made with a more stronger and more reinforced material. Of course, if you really want to go to the top of the line, you could definitely make a case for the Beats or the Soul Republics, but here's the thing. Their equalization is really geared toward, a certain style of music. I'm not just going to come out and say it. However, it's something that is very bass heavy and something that's very bass driven. The equalization on it is something that's really dependent on how you equalize the music on your playback device. It's something where you almost have to turn the bass down a lot lower, either that or turn your treble up. That way it sort of equalizes and balances things out. So that's just a forewarning that I have. But if you're able to do that, this sound is incredible. I was able to fix a pair of Studio Blue Beats, whenever I was at work one day, and I learned two things. First off, you need a battery in them, which is just ridiculous. And number two, whenever you're listening to Led Zeppelin and you plug in this pair of Beats, you all of a sudden think it's the 1970s and you're second row at a Zeppelin concert. So if it's done right, the Beats can really be a strong playback device, even for a rock or metal fan. Bernie Mac 819 asks, what is your favorite label? How many band shirts do you have? I want the exact number. I can't give you an exact number. I'm going to guess probably between 20 and 30. There's just tons. It's to the point where my drawers are overflowing because I have that, and I have standard shirts, work shirts, undershirts, underwear, socks, everything. But as far as my favorite label, there's a couple that I avoid, but I'm not really sure if I have ones that are necessarily my favorites. I do enjoy a lot of Nuclear Blast release. Season of Mist is always a good label. I really tend to avoid Prosthetic Records. Prosthetic Records sometimes has an upside to it, but in most cases, whenever I listen to this stuff, I get a lot of downside. Relapse Records is very good also, because this is music that is very different usually. This is the stuff that many people would consider to be ear rape, but for us die-hard metal musicians, this stuff usually ends up being fantastic work. Mike Puppets 9, if you were to classify subgenres in the movie genres, what movie genres would the subgenres fall under? E.g., would thrash metal be action movies? Well, thrash metal probably would be action movies because it's a fitting soundtrack. I think that black metal or, horror metal would obviously be in the horror category. Death metal would also fall under the same category. I think they would almost share it because, sometimes you have with gore metal or, black and gore, death metal, whatever you want to call it, you have a lot of illusions that kind of draw back on the horror movie element to begin with. King Diamond, of course, would definitely fall under the horror movie category, and there's not really much that I could say for comedy or drama or anything like that. Maybe progressive music would be, a little bit more geared towards the drama side of things, and, then you have, of course, your metalcore and your deathcore and your screamo, which would all be in the, children's section. That would be probably it. I don't know. Kill Rome's asks me, if you had to listen to one Trivium album, what would it be? I would probably listen to either Ember to Inferno or The Ascension. Their early stuff I actually really liked, so there you go. Evan Lacey, top 5 or 10 Iron Maiden songs or albums. I hate to do this to you, Evan, but I'm not going to answer this question because I actually have a video planned on one of these two. Probably songs, but it might potentially also be albums, or I might do both. So sit tight. It's something that'll happen in the future. Brian's 1214. How were you introduced to good music? Were you influenced by your parents' music, or did you just know what was good when you heard it the first time? Well, I didn't know good music whenever I first listened to it. I just figured it was music. My folks listened to a lot of oldies. They played a lot of oldies on the radio because that was their era of music, and I grew to have a lot of appreciation for it. And I must not have known good music whenever I first heard it because I originally listened to some rap. But I also liked Michael Jackson, which that is good music because he's got a really strong structure to his work. His voice is dynamic, and he just has should I say, I still can't believe he's dead. He had an electricity about him, and that has nothing to do with, allegations and little boys. Whenever I started to get into heavier music and alternative and metal and things like that, it was all trial and error, so I didn't know anything going in. Do I ever play an instrument? I played guitar for a while. It wasn't very good, but I do sing, so there you go. Elvian2, do you like fans sending their demos to you, and if it's good, would you review it? Well, I had a project called On the Underground that I tried a couple of years ago and then ended up abandoning because I just failed miserably at it. I got overwhelmed and kind of in over my head, so it's not necessarily that I don't like it whenever people do that, because it is cool, and I usually would like to, to talk about it if I could, but my biggest issue has been time. That's the reason why I recently wished that there was more hours in the day. I just can't seem to get to everything, and in fact I can't get to most things. So it's not that I don't like it, it's just I hate the fact that I don't have the time, and that kind of makes me feel bad because you guys are extending your work to me and I'm not getting the opportunity or reflecting my views back on you, which is what you wanted. And for the last one for today, for this one we have Zakharov Gothico going, as we know, European American metal scene is the dominant right now. What are your favorite bands from Asia, Russia excluded? That's a really good question. I don't think I really have an answer to that question. I don't know if I listen to enough that really can propel me to answer that question, because as you said, European American metal is the dominant right now. There are a lot of great bands from overseas in the Far East. However, the only one that comes to mind is Deer and Gray, and I don't think they'd be my favorite, even if it was the only band I could name, because they're good, but I know that there's better stuff out there. I probably would have to do a little bit more in the way of research and get back to you on that one. But that's a great, great question. Thank you for giving me something to think about. That's all for part 2. Stay tuned for part 3, guys, and thank you once again for 9,000 subscribers.